What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We have a combined version of all of our round of 16 picks. If you want to see them all together, this is the video to do it. Let's take a look at all the matchups. First match, we got Zverev versus Paul. Head-to-head here is 2-1 in favor of Paul. We'll talk about that in a second. They haven't played since last year. We got Zverev coming in. He's 17-6 on the hard courts, 24-9 last year, 29-10 the year before, and he's coming off a loss to Griekspoor in 3 sets. Remember, this was a little bit surprising here, especially considering he was able to break back and make that set 4-all in the third, and then gets broken immediately to lose the match. A little bit shocking there, especially given how well Zverev's been playing this year. Zverev was able to get through Cam Norrie and Terence Ottman, and that match against Terence Ottman was a great match from him. Ottman obviously, it looked like the knee was really bothering him. He had it wrapped, had a lot of tape on it, and I think pushing off really affected him. He did great to compete and keep this match close. I mean, we were splitting hairs here, 2 breakers that Zverev was able to clutch out, but this was an extremely tricky match for him. And at the end, I feel like Ottman was kind of running on adrenaline. He was really pummeling some of his forehands, and I didn't think we saw a lot of that in the middle of the match. And I think maybe if we saw some more of that kind of earlier on in both sets, we might have been able to get a few breaks in favor of Terence Ottman. But Zverev looking better and better. We talked about that first set that he played against Norrie, where he did not look great, didn't serve well. Now we're starting to see him, get a little bit more comfortable on the hard courts and start to build his confidence. Tommy Paul, he's 16-8 on the hard courts this year, 13-6 last year, 17-12 the year before. He's coming off a straight set loss to Lerner Tien, and this match was very disappointing. It felt like Paul was just missing left and right, just couldn't really get anything going. Lerner able to redirect, take a lot of time away from him, and just really frustrate him. Paul comes in and he wins a 3-setter against Hurkacz, which was a very nice win for him, 6-3 in the third there. And then a match against Vallejo where he drops the first set, and it looks like it's all the same as it was against Lerner. Vallejo able to dominate with that forehand. He was roping a lot of big shots. And Paul just not really, I don't know if I want to say it just felt like he was playing the B game. He's kind of rolling some balls back, and it was like, this is not going to work. He goes down a break 2-0. So you got Vallejo, he's 4 games away from winning this match, and Paul only drops 5 games after that, winning 6-3, 6-4 in the following sets. The one adjustment that I liked was, number one, I thought Paul did a great job playing the ball more aggressively and not hitting it as big. I felt like the commentators were really saying oh, he's roping the shot. He was just taking it earlier. He was just really challenging the movement of Vallejo. I think he started to understand, this shows you kind of how smart these guys are. He understood that if he allowed Vallejo time to set up for that forehand, that ball was getting pummeled past him, or he would find himself on his back foot where Paul was not able to kind of control these points. But if he was able to hit behind Vallejo or take the ball early, then it allowed him to stay on offense and create more points. If you look at the breakdowns of the points where Paul was controlling in the first set compared to the second and the third set, I think you're going to see a very stark difference. So a really nice win there for Tommy Paul. I mean, he came up with some big shots as well against Vallejo, and we got to credit Vallejo. That was a close final service game there for Tommy Paul, and he gave him everything he could handle, but Tommy Paul able to clutch it out there. Head-to-head here, as we talked about earlier, it was 2-1 in favor of Tommy Paul. They met first in 2020 in a straight-set win for Tommy Paul in Acapulco. Then they met in Indian Wells, a 3-set win for Tommy Paul there. That was in 2022. And then in 2025, last year, they met in the Australian Open quarterfinals. And, this was a nice run that Tommy Paul was on. And the match was very tight, 7-6, 7-6, 2-6, and then a 6-1 final set. A little bit disappointing there in the final set, but we know Zverev is the class of the tour. Guys, just looking at this matchup, I wonder if Tommy Paul has been awoken now. If we're going to see a Tommy Paul that is now motivated and ready to take on a higher level. Because if he brings the level that he had against Vallejo for the first set and a half, I think he's going to be down and out pretty quickly against Zverev. But we know Tommy Paul's got a good return. He can take a lot of shots early. He can come into net and pressure Zverev. He can put a lot of pressure on that Zverev forehand side. So I can see this being a tricky match. However, I have to pick Zverev here, guys. He's starting to serve a lot better. Let's take a look at these serving numbers here against Mon. 68% first serves in, won 85% of those, and he won 60% of his second serves. Terence Otman won 71% of his second serves. That's very impressive, but his first serve numbers were not as good as Zverev's. 44 winners from Alexander Zverev. Yeah, I just, I think Zverev's starting to click here, and this is a form that we're more familiar with this year, where he's able to, once he gets the serve going, he's so lethal on the hard courts. I can see this going 3 sets, but I think it's going to be 2 tough straight sets here for Zverev. I think it would take a lot from Tommy Paul to take a set, but guys, this is a prove it match from Tommy Paul. Show us that you're ranked 24 right now in the world. Show us that you can compete with the top 5 guys. Show us that you still have that ability. Remember, you were frustrating Zverev back in 2022 with your style. He can definitely do it here. You were frustrating Zverev for 2.5 sets in last year in Melbourne. Now we're on a similar hard court surface. He can definitely do it, but I just haven't seen enough for me to trust that he can, 1, get this match done, but 2, even take a set. So I'm going with Zverev. I think he gets this one done in 2 tough straight sets. We got Rafael Jodar taking on Flavio Cobolli. This is going to be a really interesting matchup here. No head-to-head between these 2 guys, and these are 2 guys that have been on the rise this year. Cobolli making the finals of the French Open, and Jodar having a tremendous clay court season, 19-4, and a great hard court season, 25-8. Losing in the DC finals, losing in the semifinals of Montreal, and now making it to the 4th round of Cincinnati. I mean, he's looked phenomenal. Let's talk about his path to the round of 16 here. Able to beat Shapovalov in 3 tough sets, and Shapo up 5-1 in that 3rd set. And, this was definitely a moment where, especially for a guy like Jodar, you just had a final appearance, you just had a semifinal appearance in a Masters, probably could have packed it up. But instead, we see him dig in. A couple of shoelace breaks, but he digs in so much here, and you can tell he wants to win every single match, no matter what it takes. And you just love seeing that. He's a great guy. He's a great guy to pick because you're going to get 150% from him every single time he comes out. Now he moved on to play Tabilo in the 3rd round, and this was an absolute drubbing in a little over an hour, a 6-2, 6-1 win. And you could tell in the first set, Jodar comes out. He's firing on all cylinders. The forehand looks great. He's pushing Tabilo around. He's returning aggressively, really putting pressure on that Tabilo second serve. And in the second set, you hear Tabilo, his conversations with his coach, where he's basically just saying, I don't know what to do. He said, I don't have any answers for this. How am I supposed to win points? And you knew he was teetering on an edge. That was at 1-all. And you knew it was just a matter of time. If he got broken, all the floodgates would open and Jodar would be able to win. And that's exactly what happened there. He got broken early on in that second set, and Jodar just able to run away with it. And guys, obviously I know we picked Tabilo here, and it's just extremely disappointing watching this. I mean, I'm impressed with Jodar for sure, but for Tabilo to just kind of roll over here after having a pretty good hard court season so far is very disappointing to see. And it does bring, a little bit of awareness for me here going into the U.S. Open. What kind of Tabilo are we going to get in New York? So I'll be interested to see, how he turns out there. But Hadar is able to advance in straight sets to the round of 16, which is exactly what he needed. Feel like he's recovering a lot here after that semifinal appearance in Montreal. Gets a day off now. Let's talk about Cobolli's path to the round of 16. Able to beat Kekmanovic in 3 sets. Didn't look great there. 8 double faults. And then he turns around and beats Alexander Blocks after being down 5-3 in that third set. Comes back and wins at 7-5. And, obviously, guys, yes, Cobolli played great. And, yes, he came up with a lot of clutch shots. And in those big points, the deuce games, the break points, Cobolli was the guy taking the risks and roping his shots. And sometimes he missed them, but most of the time today he made them. He came up with a ton of passing shots against Blocks as well. And for me, that game, that Blocks serving out the match, we saw the first serve percentage just plummeted. And that's a sign of nerves and inexperience. Blocks really needed to get those first serves in to really have a chance to close out Cobolli, because Cobolli's going to be taking some cuts. He's going to be looking to play offense. He's not going to give you any easy points in those types of situations. And just a great match there. And you could tell, both these guys, honestly, at the end, you could tell how much the wins meant to them. Big celebrations. They want to be here. They want to continue their path in Cincinnati. So this is going to be an interesting matchup for sure. We got Hadar coming in. He's 25-8 on the hard courts, 23-9 last year, 0-1 the year before. As we mentioned before, he's coming off a semifinal loss to Brandon Nakashima in Montreal. Was able to beat Musetti, Lehechka, and Fils. Cobolli, on the other hand, he's 11-6 on the hard courts, 9-13 last year, 26-13 the year before. And he's coming off a disappointing loss to Hanfman in Montreal, 7-6, 7-6 there. But we know Cobolli, he's just a great front runner. Kind of once he starts to pick up steam here, it's very hard to beat him. Guys, I can't wait to watch this match. I mean, let's keep in mind, you got Cobolli, who's ranked 10 in the world, and you got Hadar, who's ranked 11 in the world. I mean, what a matchup this is going to be here. Keys to the match for me for Cobolli, he's got to control the points with his forehand. I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to do that. He needs to continue to get his first serve in because Hadar attacks the second serve so aggressively. Cobolli also needs to look to take advantage of that Hadar second serve as well, which might be a little bit difficult, but he does return extremely well, and he can break if he's returning aggressively. Keys for Hadar, I mean, he's just got to stay playing his aggressive style. Just like we mentioned with Cobolli, he's got to play his returns aggressive and keep the pressure on that Cobolli serve. We just saw 2 matches ago 8 double faults. I mean, what is Cobolli going to do when you got Hadar, who's just right on top of the baseline looking to rope your second serve back in play? Guys, I'm just so dumbfounded that I thought maybe the legs of Hadar, he looked a little bit slower in the Chapo match. He looked fatigued in this Tabilo match playing the longer points. The only problem is Tabilo couldn't get him into any of the longer points. Is Cobolli going to be able to do that? I'm not too sure. Cobolli's not the type of guy that wants to play out some of these longer drawn out points. He likes to play first strike with that forehand. So I think this is going to be a 3-setter. I hope it's going to be a 3-setter. I want to enjoy this match. But I got to go with Hadar, guys. I think he's going to grind out another big win here. I do keep telling you guys, be careful of those legs of Hadar. We've seen them give out in matches earlier this year. The one that comes to mind the most to me is that Darderi one in Rome, and then the Fils one in Barcelona, I believe it was. So just keep that in mind. At some point, I feel like these legs are going to give out, but we just haven't seen many signs of that here. So I got to stick with Hadar. He's rolling with a lot of confidence. Cobolli isn't playing top-notch tennis just yet. He's going to have to raise his game here to beat Hadar. We'll see if he can do it, but I'm going with Hadar to win this one in 3 sets. And we got Tirante and Mensik, as we mentioned before. No head-to-head between these two guys. Let's talk about Tirante's path to the round of 16. It's been a good one. 3 sets over 23 breakers, able to win 2 of the 3. Then upsetting Novak Djokovic in the second round in a tough 3-setter as well. 2-6, 6-4, 6-4. And then beating Landa Luthé today, 7-6, 7-6. And, he looked really good against Landa Luthé. He served extremely well, and that's what kind of helped him get out of some of these tougher points. Landa Luthé definitely was roping the ball, and he got out to a really good start in the first set, going up a break. It looked like maybe that Tirante wasn't going to have the energy to finish this off. He's had 2 3-set matches going into this, but he was able to just fight back, and that forehand on full display. He's hitting his 140-mile-an-hour serves, and he looks great. I mean, these courts seem to be really adapting to him, and I'm just so impressed with what we've gotten from Tirante here. A guy that has been kind of known to be very solid on the clay has now translated this over to the hard courts, and he looks like he's going to be a staple and a tough force to be reckoned with here. Now he goes up against another big server in Jakub Mensik. Well, let's talk about Mensik's path to the round of 16, able to beat Bellucci in 3 sets, 7-6 in the third there. And this match kind of surprised me a little bit just because we had Bellucci with a potential, I think it was a knee injury in the previous match, comes in and pushes Mensik to the limit. Then Mensik today able to take out Hijikata 6-3, 6-4. And, this was it was very similar to the Tirante story. Hijikata dominating a lot of these rallies. When these guys started to play the points out, it was kind of advantage Hijikata. However, when you have that massive serve from Mensik, able to get himself out of trouble, how many times, guys, did we see Hijikata with a break point, Hijikata with 15-30, or Hijikata love 30, and Mensik able to just throw in 2 big serves, big bombs to just get himself out of trouble. I do got to give Hijikata some credit, though. He did a great job varying his return positioning, and that's something, especially when you play a big server or a guy that's trying to get a rhythm on his serve, you want to give them different looks, and he did try to do that. It helped him a little bit in the second set, but just wasn't enough there to make a dent on the Mensik service games. Let's talk about Tirante. He's coming in 13-7 on the hard courts, 14-7 last year, 5-4 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Lerner Tien in the round of 16 in Montreal. Was able to beat Duncan Chan, Taylor Fritz, and Alexei Popyrin on his way there. Mensik, on the other hand, he's coming in 21-8 on the hard courts, 22-12 last year, 26-12 the year before. He's coming off a straight set loss to Ben Shelton in the quarterfinals of Montreal. Now, obviously, we know Shelton able to go on to win that match, but this was a very disappointing performance for Mensik. A 6-3, 6-1 loss there. And, let me just look at the serving numbers here. Yeah, not a great serving day for him. 62% of the first serves in, 64% of the first serves won. Only won 25% of his second serve points. Ben Shelton was just all over the second serves there. And Shelton also won 90% of his first service points there. So not a great returning day there for Mensik. And a phenomenal day for Ben. Mensik was able to beat Fernley, Ottman, and Botic van Zandt on his way to the quarterfinals of Montreal. Guys, this is going to be a tricky match. You have 2 big servers, so don't expect a lot of longer points. I feel like if we do get into some of these longer points, I kind of lean towards Tirante if we're starting in the neutral position. I think a lot of these points, so Mensik's going to be looking to take first strike, whether it's a serve +1 or a return +1. I think he wants to keep Tirante very honest. Now, we did just see Tirante in Montreal in the round of 16. He looked very out of place there. It started out very well against Lerner Tien, but then proceeds to lose. I think it was like 4 of 5 or 4 of 6 games to lose the set. So I'm hoping he's going to be able to show out a little bit more here, but this is a tricky customer here in Mensik who's playing very well. I did love the fact that Mensik was able to come in and clip some of those volleys off as well, put some pressure on Hijikata. Hijikata had some really good passing shots as well, but not enough to frustrate Mensik when he was at net. This is going to be a really close one, guys. This is going to be a tough one to pick. But I'm going to lean towards Mensik here. I just think he's got a little bit more of that match play experience, kind of in some of these bigger moments. And this is definitely going to be a big moment for Tirante to potentially make a quarterfinal of a Masters series. Mensik, we know, has that win over Novak Djokovic in the Miami Open. Tirante with the win over Novak Djokovic here, but Mensik able to do it in the finals of the Miami Open, in the big points, and I just love that Mensik serve. He not only can he blast it, hit a very big, flat, aggressive serve, he can also place it extremely well, with the slice. He throws in some nasty kick serves as well. So I'm gonna go with Mensik. I think he gets this one done in 3 sets. We got Arthur Fils and Alex DeMinaur. Head to head is 2-1 in favor of DeMinaur. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about Fils' path to the round of 16 here. Beating Hanfman 7-6-6-1 in the second round, and then just beating Lehechka in 3 tough sets. First set was a 6-1 set for Fils, and he came out on fire, was roping the forehand, taking the ball early, and when he really gets his legs behind the ball, it is so hard for anyone to keep up with it. Lehechka really didn't have any answers. A lot of unforced errors on his racket as he was trying to match the pace of Fils. It felt a lot like that Jodar match that we saw from Lehechka. Then in the second set, Lehechka able to up the first serve numbers and start to put a lot of pressure on Arthur Fils as well on his serve. And Fils using a couple of really big first serves to get out of trouble there. They get to a breaker, and Lehechka goes up 5-1. It looks like he's going to push it to a second set. Fils is able to rattle off 5 straight points in that breaker, and a lot of them were just Lehechka really not being able to connect with his shots. Fils gets a match point, but Lehechka tough enough to get through and hold to win that set. A really impressive breaker there from Lehechka, despite being up 5-1 and blowing it. I still think for him to kind of mentally get back and win that breaker was extremely good. Then in the third set, the early parts of the third set was a tough back and forth, both guys breaking each other. And, we had some great rallies, both guys going at it with their forehands. For me, the one issue was the errors on that Lehechka forehand side and the inability of Lehechka to defend out to that backhand side. Once Fils was able to get it out to that side, he was able to win the majority of those points. So a good win there for Arthur Fils. Maybe it could have been a straight set win for him, but a good win nonetheless. Alex DeMinaur able to get through Faria today, and this was a very interesting match. 7-5, 5-1, 15 all. They call for a rain delay. It feels like, we're about 3 points, 4 points away from DeMinaur just winning this match. It's all but over. And Faria comes out on fire after the rain delay. He's roping shots past DeMinaur, just connecting with all of his shots. I mean, he's like hitting out of his shoes on a lot of these forehands. Able to get it to a breaker in that second set, and it was just a little bit, and I gotta credit this to the lack of experience from Arthur Faria. Just a few too many errors in that breaker from him. DeMinaur realizing that he really didn't have to do much, kind of was able to just dig a few shots out and make Faria hit that one extra ball, which he was not able to connect with. So a nice straight set victory there for Alex DeMinaur. A very tricky match, and as I said in one of our earlier videos, that match really felt like that Norrie match that we saw in Montreal, where he had that match all but won, had match points in the second set, drops the second set, and then loses the next set 6-1. I really believe that if he dropped that breaker to Faria, he's probably losing that third set either 6-1 or 6-2. We got to be careful with DeMinaur in the U.S. Open, picking him against some of these tougher guys. And I'm sure that's going to give you a hint of where maybe I'm going to be going. We got Feast coming in. He's 15-5 on the hard courts, 10-6 last year, 15-9 the year before. He's coming off a quarterfinal appearance and loss to Jodar in Montreal in straight sets. Was able to beat Schweidat, Navoni, and Nori. On his way there. Alex DeMinaur, on the other hand, he's 12-7 on the hard courts, 30-11 last year, 19-6 the year before that. And he's coming off a third-round loss to Cam Nori, 6-1 in the third there. We just talked about that. Head-to-head, as we said, is 2-1 in favor of DeMinaur. Feast getting their first meeting in Barcelona, 7-5, 6-2 on the clay. Not surprising there. Feast does play very well on the clay. DeMinaur able to get a win at Wimbledon in 4 sets over Feast. And then this year, on the indoor hard courts of Rotterdam, DeMinaur was able to win 7-6, 6-2. But let's keep in mind, guys, these were some of the earlier matches back. Remember, Feast was out for, I think it was about 6 months, healing and trying to get better from injury. Comes back, makes a decent run in Montpellier, but then you see kind of the body not being able to hold up just yet, losing to DeMinaur in 2 tough sets there. Guys, I would love to hear from you guys if you're picking DeMinaur, what your reasoning is, because I'm looking at this match a lot like the Cobolli DeMinaur Wimbledon match that we saw, and I know we were like, our comments section, we were like 50-50. Some people going DeMinaur, some people going with Cobolli, and I was very adamant that Cobolli was going to win that match. It just felt like he was able to dictate with the forehand. He was able to control points with the serve. And he was just going to be the one on offense against DeMinaur. And I feel like when DeMinaur starts to get bullied by some of these bigger hitters, it's really hard for him to stay in front of the point unless he can rely on the unforced errors of the opponent, which, these guys are hitting big and they're hitting clean now too. So it's very hard for him to do something like that. So I would love to hear, if you're picking DeMinaur, if you're adamant that DeMinaur might win, tell me why, because I'm curious, maybe I'm missing something here. But I'm going to go with Arthur Feast. I love the forehand. I love the way he's hitting it. I think he could have a mediocre serving day and probably still get through this. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to come out on fire. I think the DeMinaur ball, too, kind of sits up for you. I mean, you watch today, Faria was able to really connect with those shots. I mean, Feast is going to be roping his forehand. Let's also keep in mind, yes, these guys have played 3 times before. They never played on an outdoor hard court, so I'll be interested to see how Feast is going to play against DeMinaur here. So I'm going to go with Arthur Feast. I think that forehand is going to be extremely dangerous for DeMinaur. I'm curious to see if DeMinaur is going to try to take the ball a little bit aggressively. We did kind of see him do that in that Rotterdam first round, but I'm not sure how successful he's going to be doing this outside. So I'm going Feast to advance. I think he gets it done in straights. Taylor Fritz versus Christopher O'Connell. Head-to-head is 3-0 in favor of Fritz. We'll talk about that head-to-head in a second. Let's talk about Fritz's path to the round of 16, able to beat Mickelson in straight sets and then Merida in straight sets, both by the score of 6-3, 6-4. Fritz is coming off a second-round loss to Tirante and Montreal. A little bit of a surprise, but now we're seeing Tirante make a run here in this tournament as well, beating Novak Djokovic. So maybe not so much of a surprise for us. Fritz was coming off a win at the DC Open where he was able to beat Bergs, Majcek, Mickelson, Nakashima, and Jodar. And those last 2 names, guys, I mean, need we say more? Nakashima playing some great hardcore tennis, and Jodar also playing some phenomenal tennis. This Merida match against Fritz, it was really interesting, to see. I just don't think Fritz didn't give Merida a chance to breathe. There was so many chances where he could have maybe had some break points, had chances to break, and everything just canceled out by that big Fritz serve. I thought Fritz was dominant from the baseline as well. I really would have liked to have seen Merida take a few more chances with that forehand, But it does make sense that he was a little bit tentative today against a guy like Fritz. One, because he's being pinned deep behind the baseline. But two, because of what happened against Lerner Tien last week, where we just saw him kind of take some shots with the forehand and misfire every which way. But overall, just a great display of tennis from Taylor Fritz. He looks extremely good, playing some aggressive tennis, coming into net, just hitting so many miraculous volleys, in my opinion. I mean, a lot of low balls that Marita gave him, and Fritz was able to handle them. So a good straight set win there for Taylor Fritz. Christopher O'Connell, on the other hand, he's had quite the journey here to the round of 16, beating Dane Sweeney in 3 sets in the first round of qualifying. Then a straight set win over Shevchenko and a first round win over Mychek. He then gets a retirement win from Casper Ruud. Casper Ruud pulling out due to his back injury. And then O'Connell gets a walkover from Fonseca, who pulls out due to an abdomen injury. And remember, guys, last week we were kind of talking about Fonseca getting a little bit frustrated. It looked like maybe there was an injury, but he didn't have anything taped. It didn't look like anything was really bothering, like a knee or an elbow or a wrist or something like that, where, it was pretty evident that he, the pace of the ball wasn't really diminishing. But I really think that was the issue. So this is something that maybe has been with him for a little bit, this ab injury. We got to keep an eye on that. We talk about these injuries. I can't remember who just had one. Was it Jodar early on in this season? I can't remember. And it's an injury you have to keep an eye on, because that does take a little bit of time to heal. And if you start too soon, I mean, with the serving, with the rotation on the forehand, you feel it. So I'll be interested to see what kind of Fonseca we get at the U.S. Open. Let's talk about these guys' records before we go into their head-to-head. We got Taylor Fritz coming in. He's 15-8 on the hard courts this year, 31-12 last year, 23-10 the year before. Christopher O'Connell, on the other hand, is 10-9 on the hard courts this year, 19-15 last year, 23-16 the year before. And, I guess a quick note, O'Connell's coming off a loss to Duckworth in straight sets in Montreal. Did beat Faria in 3. Head-to-head here, as you mentioned before, is a 3-0 head-to-head for Fritz. He has not dropped a set to Christopher O'Connell. And honestly, we've seen some lopsided head-to-heads in this tournament go the other way. So I don't know how much we want to trust that. Fritz able to beat him in Madrid 7-6, 6-4. Then he won in London 6-1, 6-2, 6-4. And then most recently in 2025, he got another win in Madrid 6-1, 6-4. So, definitely gives me a lot of confidence taking Fritz here, knowing that he was able to succeed on his least favorite surface over Christopher O'Connell. And guys, I got to go with Fritz here. I mean, Christopher O'Connell, I think he's playing some solid tennis, but he's nowhere near the caliber of Taylor Fritz. This would take a monumental effort for O'Connell to come in here and beat Fritz. I'm going to take Fritz. I think he's going to win this one in straights. And we got Borges and Nakashima. Head-to-head here is 0-0. These guys have not met yet. Let's talk about Borges' path to the round of 16 first. It will be Kokkinakis in the first round, then Cerundolo in straights, then Rublev in straights. And this match against Rublev, a head-to-head where Borges has had a 0-5 head-to-head against Rublev, barely even winning a set. And he's able to come out and beat Rublev in straight sets. I mean, this was impressive stuff from him. He looked extremely good, was able to redirect the ball. And honestly, one of the biggest things here was just a lot of misses at the beginning of the match from Rublev. And that was very frustrating for him. You could tell it kind of put him in a little bit of a bad mood. And he was kind of irked after getting broken early on in that first set for the rest of the match. And Borges just so good at just staying on top of the ball. And if you're not connecting with your shots that day, he's going to be able to frustrate you. Nakashima, on the other hand, let's talk about his path to the round of 16, beating Kovacevic in straight sets, and then Medvedev today in 3. And this was kind of just a war of attrition here. Nakashima able to outlast Medvedev. And how many times do we say that? Somebody outlasting Medvedev, who seems to be able to go on for days playing these matches. Nakashima, one thing that I kind of wish we broke down a little bit more about the Medvedev Nakashima match that I saw was Nakashima's ability to come into net and really pressure Medvedev. And, that's something that if you see, we don't see it a lot, especially like in this game. But Nakashima has the ability to play those volleys. And when you have Medvedev so far behind the baseline, somebody coming in and rushing you like that, you have to move up a little bit closer to where Medvedev's potentially not as comfortable. So I really liked seeing that Nakashima putting some pressure on Medvedev, forcing him to kind of not play out these longer points. And Brandon Nakashima did come up with some amazing volleys. And this was close going into the third set, a little bit back and forth, close games to start the third set. And then Nakashima just able to pull away. And once he got that break, it kind of was just curtains for Medvedev. He really didn't have any answers. The game that the service game that he lost was a lot of errors off his racket. Let's talk about these records here. We got Borges coming in. He's 13-9 on the hard court, 17-14 last year, 20-12 the year before. And he's coming off a loss to Darderi in 3 sets in Montreal. And remember, that was a really closely contested match. Nakashima, on the other hand, he's having an amazing hardcourt summer. He's 19-8 right now on the hardcourts, 19-14 last year, 24-12 the year before, and he's coming off a loss in the finals of Montreal to Ben Shelton in straight sets. Was able to beat Altmaier, Droguet, Rinderknecht, Darderi, and Jodar to get to that final. I do have some questions, about the Nakashima legs and how this guy's going to be able to keep going here. Did make the semifinals of DC and then the finals of Montreal. Conversely, you have Jodar, who we had talked about in an earlier video, making the finals of DC and semifinals of Montreal, and he's still going as well. So, I mean, it's a testament to the fitness that these guys are in to be able to recover and play this many tough matches in so many days. I'll be interested to see if this does catch up to Brandon Nakashima. It didn't look like it did today against Medvedev. Guys, I gotta go with Nakashima here. No head-to-head between these two guys, and I can see a path where Borges can really bother Brandon Nakashima. Just being able to take the ball early, being able to redirect and kind of use the pace that Nakashima gives him. Another thing too is I just really like the variety though off the Nakashima racket. I think that's going to make a big difference here. I think he's going to frustrate Borges. He's going to give him a lot of looks. Borges kind of likes the Rublev type player, which is surprising because of the head-to-head. But he does kind of like that type of player where he's able to redirect the shots and use the pace against them. Nakashima can take the pace off the ball with the slice. He can come in and rush you coming into net. I think we're going to see a lot of that here. But Nuno Borges is playing some very good tennis, guys. I think this might be another 3-setter. So I'm going to take Brandon Nakashima to advance to another quarterfinal in a Master Series. I think he wins this one in 3. And we got Faria against Musetti. No head-to-head between these two guys. Let's talk about Faria's path to the round of 16 first. And it's been a pretty long one here. Able to get through qualifying, beating Bajashvili and Wu in straight sets, then taking out Brooksby in straights, and the Montreal champion in Ben Shelton in straight sets. But, we kind of figured that was going to be a tricky match for Ben, and we weren't sure how much effort he was going to put into the match here, coming off that Montreal win. And you remember last year at the U.S. Open, having those shoulder issues. How many rounds did he want to win here and strain that shoulder? I think he's definitely ready to go for the U.S. Open, and I'm sure he thinks that too. Then we had Adam Walton today. This was a huge comeback from Faria, down 6-4, 4-1 to Walton, able to fight back for a 4-6, 6-4, 7-6 win. And, Faria did have a lead. He was up a break early on in that third set, and it looked like maybe he was going to be able to just kind of roll with this momentum. Remember, he had won, at that point, I think it was 6 of the last 7 games. And he was able to continue to roll with this momentum. But gotta credit to Walton. He was able to stick in some of these rallies and capitalize on some errors off of Faria. I feel like Faria had some of the bigger shots on the court. He was able to really rope that forehand and get the ball to the Walton backhand, which to me was a little bit of an issue today towards the end of that set. But we got to give Faria all the credit. We talk about how much this guy just fights for every single point, fights in every single match, and it's not over until it's over for him. Seeing him lose that heartbreaker in Roland Garros to Francis Tiafoe, it was really tough to watch because he had given everything he had. He was up 2-0. Tiafoe was able to come back and win it in 5. They have a little bit of a chippy disagreement in the middle of it, but Faria played as good as he could, and he wasn't able to get the win there, and it really felt like he did deserve it. But here, he's starting to kind of see this grinded out mentality start to pay off, and I think that's really promising for him. Hasn't really had that great of hardcourt seasons, was good in the challenger level, ITF level, but showing us a little bit more on the clay. Now we're starting to see he's 10-4 on the hard courts this year. That's pretty impressive stuff from him. Let's talk about Lorenzo Mussetti's path to the round of 16 here, beating Altmaier in straight sets and then beating Zhang in straights. And, I wasn't really sure what to expect from this Michael Zhang match against Musetti, and it was pretty clear that Musetti was just a little bit of a class higher than Zhang, and Zhang's going to have to kind of make some adjustments. It reminds me of the first time some of these college guys see one of these top level guys. Now it doesn't mean that Zhang isn't ever gonna be able to compete with a guy like Musetti. I think he definitely has the tools and the weapons to do so, but he's got to make those adjustments. I mean, I just think you come from, and look, the college ranks are extremely strong right now, but you come from that and then you see a guy moving as fast as Musetti, hitting the ball as big as Musetti, and probably one of the biggest things that Musetti does is being able to change the defense to offense so quickly. When you think you're on offense, you think you have him beat, he's able to rope a shot past you. He's able to come up with a massive forehand on the run. Those are the things that you just don't see, at the challenger level. So definitely, I think Zhang can definitely make these adjustments, but I think this was just a little bit of a step up for him, and he wasn't able to make it up there. Musetti played extremely well, I thought. Won a high percentage of his first service points, and we talk about like if he's able to get that first serve in, which he was only at, I think he was only at like 60%, maybe below 60% this match, but was still able to kind of win a lot of those first serve points that he got the first serve in, and a lot of the second serve points against Zhang. I mean, that's one thing here, and we saw Jodar, who was able to do it against Musetti. If you're going to beat this guy and he comes out and he serves at like 55 or 60%, you better be putting some pressure on the second serve, and Zhang wasn't able to do that today. Let's talk about these records here. We got Faria coming in. He's 10-4 on the hard courts, 9-6 last year, 24-5 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Droguet in Montreal. Remember, he lost in the qualifiers, got a lucky loser spot. I believe this was Felix Auger-Aliassime's lucky loser spot. Comes in, loses to Droguet in straights, and you think, wow, like there's no way this guy hasn't adjusted to the hard courts. He won't be able to adjust, because he had a pretty nice run to the quarterfinals in Estoril, his home tournament. But now we see him in the round of 16 here, making a little bit of a run, and something tells me I think he's going to push Musetti to the limit here. Musetti, on the other hand, he's 12-5 on the hard courts, 18-11 last year, 13-12 the year before. He's coming off a straight set loss to Jodar, and guys, since the start of the summer, he's only had 2 losses, both of them to Rafael Jodar. I'll be interested to see how this match plays out. I gotta go with Musetti here. I just love the way that he's able to play that offense, the way that he's able to move on these courts. I think Faria is going to have to take some risks to kind of keep Musetti off balance, because Musetti's going to be coming, full tilt at him with this aggression. And slowly but surely, we're seeing glimpses of Australian Open Musetti at this tournament, and it gets me excited because maybe things can kind of click together for him as he heads into the U.S. Open. But I think a deep run for Musetti is definitely going to do a good amount on the confidence of him. But I got to take Musetti here. I feel like we're going to see one close set, and then I think Musetti's going to be able to roll after that. I do question the Faria legs as well. He's got, it says 5.5 hours, but I don't think this most recent match has been factored in yet. So I think he's at about 7 or 8 hours on court. That's a lot. That's a lot to be out there, to be playing. I think Musetti can really take the legs from him as well. We kind of saw the legs go at Roland Garros against Tiafoe too. So, if this match goes long, you're probably going to lean towards Musetti as well. I think it's going to be a straight setter. So give me Musetti to advance to the quarterfinals in straights. And our final match, we got Frances Tiafoe against Felix Auger-Aliassime. Head-to-head here is 3-1 in favor of Felix. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about Frances Tiafoe's path to the round of 16, beating Sonego in straights, and then tonight beating Lerner Tien in 3 tough sets. And this was kind of a little bit of a sloppy third set, a lot of breaks back and forth. Tiafoe getting that final break, being able to hold for a 5-3 lead, and then winning it at 6-4 in the third. He played well. He played his offense really well. You could hear his coaches telling him to go up the middle of the court. We know how good Lerner Tien is with the angles on the ball. So, the more you move him, the better his angles are going to get, the more he can open the court up against you. And those are just not rallies that Frances Tiafoe wants to get into. He wants to just bully Tien up the middle of the court and then just wait for his shot to take that big rip and open the court up. And he was able to do that pretty effectively, was able to come into net. Did have a little bit of a medical timeout in between the second and third sets. It looked like they were treating the lower back, I think it was. So we got to keep an eye out for that, especially, recovering and coming back. These guys are all playing tomorrow, I believe. So not a lot of time here to recover. Let's talk about Auger-Aliassime's path to the round of 16 here, beating Tsitsipas in straight sets, and then a straight set win over Juan Manuel Cerundolo. And, at the beginning of this match, guys, Cerundolo was really pushing him to the limit, had some break chances. It looked like maybe this was going to be a really tricky match for Felix, but once he started to get the forehand going, he started to get some looks at the second serve of Juan Manuel Cerundolo. You have Felix winning 90% of his first serve points. That's very impressive stuff. 57% of his second serve points, and Felix able to break 3 out of the 5 break points he had, and that stuff really just really helped him. Cerundolo only saw 1 break chance, and that really just is a testament to Felix really stepping his game up, using the serve +1, dominating with the forehand, and he looked good. I was really interested to see. I thought it was interesting that we saw Felix and we saw Taylor Fritz use this as well, the drop shot. For these guys, these kind of natural clay quarters, they like to kind of sit back and camp out deep on the baseline. We saw the use of the drop shot today on the hard court, especially for both these guys. You got Fritz and Felix both using that forehand drop. If you can disguise it really well, the way they hit their forehand, you have to defend the big shot anyways. So the drop shot, it doesn't even need to be perfect, can be a very effective shot for those two guys. Let's talk about records here. We got Tiafoe coming in. He's 16-8 on the hard court this year, 13-13 last year, 21-13 the year before. He's coming off a loss from Rinderknecht, 6-2, 2-0. And remember, he had a hand injury that he had to retire in Montreal. Was able to beat Cilic in the first round, but then lost to Rinderknecht. Tiafoe also had a first-round loss to Terence Ottman in 3 sets in the DC Open, his home tournament. And, this was... When he lost to Rinderknecht and pulled out there, I think that was kind of red flags for me. Now that he's been able to beat Leonard Tien, I think that really helps him with the confidence. I think going into the U.S. Open, if he had lost to either Sonego or Tien, I think we would really have some questions going into the U.S. But this, to me, is going to be a good match and a good barometer of where Tiafoe stands now. Felix, on the other hand, he's 9-5 on the hard court, 24-10 last year, 6-10 the year before, and he's coming off a loss in the quarterfinals to Djokovic at Wimbledon, 7-6 in the third there. A very tricky match there, and Felix had some chances to close him out, just wasn't able to. But I did like, we talked about Felix's when he lost to Cobolli in the quarterfinals, was extremely disappointed, extremely dejected. Talked about how he had worked so hard to improve his clay court game, and he felt like he saw no improvements. Here in the press conference after the Djokovic match, he seemed much more positive, which I think is good. Obviously, losing to Cobolli, who became a first-time semifinalist in a Grand Slam, you had a chance to beat a guy like that. That's a big opportunity. Against Novak, you're talking about one of the greatest of all time, and Felix was able to push him to the absolute limit, which I think really helped him. He did pull out of Montreal with a back issue, I believe it was, so we got to keep an eye on that as well. Both these guys, potential back issues. Let's talk about this head-to-head here. As we mentioned before, it's 3-1 in favor of Felix. However, Francis getting the most recent one in Halle. This was the crazy match, 14-12 in the quarterfinals. And remember, Tiafoe able to go on and win that tournament. Let's talk about their previous matchups. Back in 2021, they met at the U.S. Open. It was a tough 4-set win for Felix. Then they met in Barcelona in 2022. It was a straight set win for Felix on the clay there. And then they met in Paris on the indoor hard courts. It was another straightforward straight set win for Felix. And Tiafoe just able to kind of turn the tables here. And he was playing some really good tennis in Halle. I think that we're going to see Felix really wanting to come out looking for revenge here. However, you have a Tiafoe who's playing with a lot of confidence and is going to have the crowd on his side. Not that I think that that's going to affect Felix, but I really do think it helps Tiafoe push forward. Plus, this is going to be a night match, I believe, so that's an even bigger plus for Francis Tiafoe. He's going to get up for this match. I got some questions about both these guys' health. We're really splitting hairs between these two guys. I love what I've seen so far from Francis Tiafoe throughout the year. It's tough to kind of isolate it in the last few weeks. He hasn't looked great the last few weeks, but I do like how he's trying to extend his rallies a little bit more. How he's not going for the big shot as early as he used to, and he's trying to develop the point. I think that's going to help him as he tries to get into potentially the top 20 and maybe back into the top 10. Remember, he was ranked as high as 10 in the world. And also, he got rid of his coaching staff last year entirely, the whole coaching staff, and I think most of that was due to the lack of success that he had at the U.S. Open. I think he's out here, he's ready to go, and he wants to make a dent at the U.S. Open. So now we're in the pressure situations, and I think it's important for him to make a deep run in this tournament. I think this is going to be another three-setter. I think this is going to be another thriller, guys. I think we're going to be treated to a really fun match here with a lot of shot making. I do always get nervous if it's close, like what Felix does. Is he going to clutch up, or is he going to miss, some of these crucial shots? And we saw that a little bit in at Wimbledon against Djokovic. But I'm going to go with Felix here, guys, to get through this. I think he gets it done in 3. And here's a look at our finalized third round records. 12-3 for me, 12-3 for the Pamplemousse, 8-7 for Gecko. Gecko holding that 53-24 tournament record. I'm holding at 49-29. Pamplemousse at 42-27. A nice bounce back for the Pamplemousse after a rough first round. Hopefully we can carry this into the round of 16. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We will have individual videos out for all the round of 16 matches as they become available. I will also try to get a combined version of all the round of 16 matches because it seems like a lot of people like to watch that as well. That'll just be a full-on, 30, 40-minute stream of all the 8 matches for the round of 16. Can't wait to talk about each of these matches with you guys. I'll see you in the next video.